You want to know what Farage and Reform are doing on their rare visits to Parliament? They're voting against our employment rights bill. They talk the language of workers' rights online and on the doorstep, but they voted against.
I've been his friend for a long time, and I wasn't sure, am I supposed to be his friend or not? But it never mattered to me if he did well or not. I always liked him, but it's easier to like him when he got the kind of votes he got. He really took it by storm, and they say he's going to do even better this time. Nigel Farage. Where is Nigel?
Kier Starmer's attack on Nigel Farage and his Reform UK party was unexpectedly causing significant heat.
They want to charge people to use our NHS. They claim to be the party of patriotism, but they're fawning over Putin. No, they are not the answer for working people in Britain, and they are not the answer for Scotland.
The Labour leader, Farage, has expressed concerns over Reform UK's opposition to a UK employment rights bill, accusing it of undermining workers' protections. However, his attacks may be more about fear as Farage's influence grows, especially after Brexit. He is caught in a tricky position, concerned about the rise of Reform UK, a party gaining traction as disillusioned people disillusion with the main political parties.
He spouts off like that. Most of the British people now, I think, abhor Labour. They abhor what they're doing. It's not about, workers' rights and everything. This country's got the most incredible workers' rights protections. In fact, employment law is now almost stopping people employing people simply because it's so complicated. It's far too weighted in favour of the employee, not the employer. And now Angela Rayner's just added another $5 billion onto British business with her Employers' Rights Act. Right. Equally, Rachel Reeves has just loaded up the private sector with huge tax increases, largely on employment. As you know, she's put up national insurance, but she's also reduced the threshold, which I don't think a lot of businesses yet understand fully, which is a straight tax on employment. So not surprisingly, you're seeing companies prepare for the tax rise, which happens in April, by cutting the number of people they employ. Mm. So I don't think these people understand anything. As you know, the 26 front-bench ministers, I think only 3 of them have got what I would describe as sketchy business experience.
Trump criticized Farage's rising star for attempting to push back against his views on immigration and national sovereignty. He noted that both men share similar views on these issues. Trump also noticed that Farage seemed to be trying to suppress Farage out of fear that reforming the UK might challenge the Labour party hold on power.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you. What a great guy.
The UK's Farage situation is similar to the US's under Trump, both outsiders pushing against traditional political orders. Trump's endorsement of Farage is not just a political endorsement, but a statement that Starmer and others are facing a new political force they don't know how to handle, and it's just getting started. Both parties are appealing to people feeling left behind by the establishment.
Not the answer for working people in Britain.
And you think you are? He doesn't get it, does he? He thinks that we're all stupid. Kier went on about green energy, which is bankrupting us all, and future jobs that don't currently exist. He thinks that we will blindly follow Nigel Farage. But we're not stupid. What an insult to our intelligence. In my view, he's just jealous because of this.
The leader of the UK Reform Party, who, by the way, did really well in that.
Trump has a lasting friendship with Nigel Farage, a political outsider who challenges traditional political order in their countries. Their bond is not just about mutual respect, but also about a shared vision for the world. Trump defends Farage, standing by him who shares his hardline views on immigration, nationalism, and skepticism towards international institutions like the European Union and the United Nations.
Thank you. What a great guy.
Kier Starmer must hate that. Shame on his front bench for their insult about Donald Trump. Nigel Farage responded to the Prime Minister saying, "How dare Starmer talk to us about jobs? Scotland has lost more than 70,000 jobs linked to the North Sea as a result of government net zero policies over the past decade."
Farage and Trump share a strong and powerful alliance, advocating for tighter borders and a cautious approach to immigration. They prioritize national security and sovereignty over global cooperation. Their shared ideology makes their alliance powerful, and Farage's rise reflects the same anti-globalist, pro-sovereignty sentiment that fueled his own political career. Their shared ideology makes their alliance powerful for Trump.
Nigel, I do think the language that Donald Trump used about immigrants, they were all vermin. They were all poisoning our blood. That was straight out.
That is outrageous, Alistair, and you know it.
No, it's not. Why is
that outrageous? Very pro-legal immigration into America. Very pro it indeed. He's not pro criminal gangs using the southern border. And that's
what this gentleman...
Trump and J.D. Vance, prominent figures in U.S. politics, are warning against the dangers of overreaching government control. Vance has expressed concerns about the UK's potential restricting free speech and stifling national identity, similar to the U.S.'s progressive policies. The message is to stand firm on national identity, free speech, and immigration policies or risk losing them to globalist pressures. Trump and Vance are a growing alliance pushing back against threats to national sovereignty and freedoms.
We cannot rebuild Western civilization. We cannot rebuild the United States of America or Europe by letting millions and millions of unvetted illegal migrants come into our country. It has to stop. Thank God it stopped here, but it's got to stop there.
Four's immigration policy aims for a controlled, hardline approach that prioritizes UK national security, mirroring Trump's stance. Both leaders believe unchecked immigration strains public services and threatens the country's identity. The hardline Boy's approach appeals to those who believe immigration has gone unchecked and resources are being stretched thin. Critics call it restrictive, but supporters believe it's about reclaiming control and sovereignty. The UK's culture and way of life are protected, and the policy appeals to those who feel unchecked.
I laughed as I sort of spat out my cornflakes this morning as he made that ridiculous speech. I mean, honestly, what it shows is that he and the Labour Party are terrified and petrified of the progress of reform, not just across the whole of the UK, where we're now leading in many of the opinion polls, but also in Scotland, where we've been soaring in the polls as well. Labour in Scotland have been sinking in the polls. I think we're give or take equal with Labour in Scotland, or within just a couple of points. And that's because actually we're standing up for decent, ordinary working folk. We've got the policies of common sense that many of your listeners have been reporting to you today. And it's interesting now, the Prime Minister is so desperate, Peter, that he's resorting essentially...
Kier Starmer is balancing his role as a Labour leader with the rise of populist movements, particularly those led by figures like Farage. He defends Labour's progressive policies on workers' rights while addressing anti-establishment sentiment. Farage's appeal is crucial as more voters feel left behind by the political elite. However, Starmer risks losing touch with the growing group of voters who are attracted to reform UK's vision if he goes too far in criticising Farage.
In opposition, you said, Trump is such an odious, sad little man. Imagine being proud to have that as your president.
Wow.
How would you deal with President-elect Trump, who has a very long memory for stuff like that?
Well, two things. Firstly, the Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary have been working hard to build a relationship with President Trump and his team, so that in the event that he is elected as the next President of the United States, we start with the strong working relationship.
Oh, went straight in. What have you...
Starmer, the UK's Prime Minister, is navigating a delicate relationship with Trump and his supporters. Ensuring the UK's relationship with the US post-Brexit is crucial. He plays both sides to keep Labour relevant and avoid damaging the international standing of the Labour Party. The growing alliance between Donald Trump and Nigel Farage is a sign of a wider shift in global politics, as populism is gaining ground in both the US and the UK. This shift signals that voters are rejecting the status quo and turning to voices that prioritize their country and its people. Trump's America First mantra and Farage's push for a UK free from EU influence are tapped into a deep sense of dissatisfaction with global elites, which is spreading rapidly.
A man from Europe, I don't know if he's here, I saw him backstage, What he did was, and what he is doing is sort of what we did a few years ago. He's doing a great job. He's always been my friend for some reason. He liked me, I liked him, and he's shaking it up pretty good over there. He was the big winner of the last election in the UK, and he's a very spectacular man, very highly respected, Nigel Farage.
Farage's rise post-Brexit is part of a larger wave of nationalism and sovereignty, with calls for tighter borders and more controlled immigration policies, reflecting a growing movement across the West to reclaim national identity and decision-making, power from international institutions. Both Labour and Conservative parties in the UK are facing increasing pressure to adjust their platforms, with issues like immigration, national security, and workers' rights being pushed to the forefront. Trump's calls for stronger conservative alliances may embolden figures like Farage to push for a populist UK with national sovereignty and strict immigration policies. This convergence of populist forces in both the US and the UK could create a more coordinated approach on issues like free speech and immigration and shape the future of global politics.
I was born in this country, lived here all my life, but I feel betrayed by it because, this country houses and funds the small boat migrants, right? They put them up in luxury hotels, whereas young people like myself, we've got to scrape and claw for every opportunity we get. So what I'd like to know is when and why did this country decide we're going to choose migrants over our own youth?
Kier Starmer faces increasing pressure to maintain Labour relevance as populist movements like Farage gain momentum. The political landscape is shifting, and Labour's traditional approach is being questioned. Farage's rise, especially after Brexit, has sparked nationalism and anti-establishment sentiment. Labour needs to rethink its stance on key issues like immigration, which Farage has turned into a core platform. Farage's success shows that many voters feel the old political parties no longer represent them, requiring Starmer May to shift gears and embrace a more populist nationalistic approach. This would seem unthinkable just a few years ago.
Let me explain this to you, Kier. In really simple terms, without evading the answer by waffling like your lot. Reform UK are ahead of all of you, and that includes the other parties, because you don't listen. You probably won't listen to this, even though I'm actually trying to help you. You're not listening to the people who voted for you. You are hooked on your own ideology, which is incompatible.
Starr's leadership is at a pivotal moment, as he must balance Labour's traditional values with political changes. The next steps could determine whether Labour can survive populism or be overtaken by figures like Farage and Trump. The uncertainty of Starr's position is evident, and he must navigate this uncertain future.